Here's what they don't tell you about Willow's sudden transformation, because this week, she might be the most dangerous person in Port Charles. Brooke Lynn's expression at the sight of Gio and Emma arriving radiates the kind of sugar-sweet delight usually reserved for holiday commercials. Fitting, since their appearance all but telegraphs the inevitable scene where she leaps to Gio's defense the moment Dante raises an eyebrow. The show seems determined to present this as a long-lost maternal reunion, complete with Lois offering heartfelt gifts and assurances that Brooke Lynn didn't miss out on Gio's childhood. Apparently, shared history can be retroactively manufactured if everyone insists hard enough. Thanksgiving will be cozy. A ready-made mother-son duo is a convenient centerpiece, especially now that Chase is otherwise preoccupied orbiting Willow's emotional solar system. Meanwhile, chaos continues its standard tour of Port Charles. Valentine is on the loose, though apparently too polite to attack anyone at the moment. Instead, he's being stashed away like contraband. Someone is stalking Carly. Pick a man, any man. Jack, Jason, Marco. The usual suspects are interchangeable at this point, a revolving door of shadowy figures tiptoeing through her storyline. Portia's pregnancy bombshell hovers ominously in the background, one that Trina inevitably overhears, because secrecy in this town is about as durable as tissue paper. Yet, for reasons known only to the writers, Trina directs more scrutiny toward Jordan than toward either of the men she calls Dad. One might think that at least one paternal relationship would warrant a conversation. Elsewhere in the house of Quartermain confusion, Michael is spotted staring through Drew's window with the furtive energy of someone juggling more than one agenda. His motivations remain conveniently murky. Drew, for his part, is limping around with a cane in a manner that defies even the most forgiving medical logic, considering his injury was nowhere near the limb he's favoring. And Ned's miraculous post-open heart surgery recovery, pain-free, rehab-free, and faster than most people bounce back from a head cold, continues to challenge the boundaries of realism. Still, he probably ought to mention that Drew was present during his cardiac event. That tiny detail might matter. Willow's behavior, however, is the true gravity, pulling every storyline into suspicion. Her capacity for genuine affection toward Scout is clear, but the emotional fog elsewhere is thick enough to hide an aircraft carrier. Some insist she's the one who shot Drew, kindly enough to leave him alive, framing Michael as part of an elaborate bid to secure custody of her children. Chase knows more about her nocturnal visits to the Quartermain residence than he's currently volunteering. Michael certainly does. Whether this theory is melodramatic conjecture or painfully accurate remains to be seen, but it does cast Willow's sudden chill toward Drew in a more strategic light. Speaking of questionable homecomings, Kai's return to the Ashford household is treated with a warmth far more generous than his prior betrayal deserves. His presence grates, yet it may be the very thing that finally pushes certain secrets into the open, particularly if Curtis's arrest becomes the catalyst for truth-telling. The notion that Curtis somehow accessed Edward's gun collection stretches credulity, but then again, this storyline has long since stopped apologizing for monotony. In romance news, Jocelyn and Agent Vaughn's spark has been abruptly snuffed out, a disappointment largely overshadowed by the ongoing parade of half-resolved entanglements elsewhere. Cody, for reasons never explained, is left off the Thanksgiving guest list, though Wiley and Amelia seem to have vanished into holiday childcare limbo. And finally, with Kevin Collins now reappearing on a different series, his GH persona appears to have achieved the rare honor of being both alive and functionally extinct. A recast or a dignified exit might be kinder than forcing viewers to pretend a year-long disappearance is perfectly normal. In short, Port Charles is brimming with secrets spoken too loudly, motives concealed too poorly, and medical recoveries delivered suspiciously fast. Business as usual, only with more pregnancies, more eavesdropping, and a cane that absolutely refuses to make anatomical sense. Here's what no one wants to admit about Willow's marriage strategy. It's not love, it's calculated desperation. Willow's latest strategic masterwork appears to be built on the radical idea that if one cannot secure a sound plan, one can always substitute a deeply unsound man. Her open admission that she doesn't love Drew, an admission shared, silently, by nearly everyone who has endured his charisma-free attempts at gravitas, sets the tone. She knows precisely what he is, what he isn't, and how many public humiliations he has survived with all the expressive depth of a damp cracker. And yet she presses forward, clinging to the fantasy that proximity to his congressional title will somehow pry her children back into her orbit. It is an extraordinary exercise in optimism, or delusion. The distinction grows thin. Aligning with Drew, a man who could scarcely orchestrate a dinner reservation without turning it into a Greek tragedy, hardly constitutes a masterstroke in courtroom strategy. Yet Willow barrels ahead, a soft-spoken tactician dressing her maneuvering in the language of maternal devotion. The pearls may be polished, but the intent glints sharper than she pretends. Behind the gentle nurse veneer is a schemer willing to turn Drew's beige existence into an emotional theme park he never asked to visit, and he, smiling with golden retriever enthusiasm, remains blissfully unaware that he is being used as both pawn and prop. In this arrangement, Willow isn't stepping into a romance. She's stepping into the role of villain in his story. The most amusing part is that she knows the plan is bad and commits to it anyway. Desperation has seized top billing, and everyone else is merely supporting cast. Meanwhile, Alexis, the ever-credentialed attorney, apparently requires a refresher on grandparents' rights law, a curious oversight for someone who usually keeps legal loopholes holstered for sport. Her sudden devotion to Drew's cause would be touching if it weren't so profoundly misplaced. Additional subplots swirl. Drew's congressional seat inspires the kind of wishful hopes usually reserved for meteor showers and power outages. Curtis and Jordan's unresolved chemistry continues to beg for a reunion. A mysterious charmer greeting Laura with "Hello, beautiful," stirs speculation. And the lingering question of whether Michael still loves Willow hovers like a storm cloud waiting for its cue. But the most telling moment arrives on Willow's wedding day, when an unmistakably cold glint crosses her face, an expression suggesting that her vows are less about love and more about leverage. Should Michael crash the ceremony, armed with knowledge of her entanglements and her tenuous claim to parental fitness, the chaos would surprise no one. The stage is set, the matches are struck, and when the flames rise, Drew may finally realize that the greatest threat to his well-pressed public service persona wasn't scandal, rivals, or politics. It was the woman standing beside him, smiling sweetly while calculating her next move. Here's what they really don't want you noticing about Jacinda's sudden rise from background receptionist to prime suspect. The search for Drew's shooter has become a masterclass in misdirection, convenient timing, and characters behaving with all the subtlety of a marching band. The most intriguing thread begins with Jacinda, Crimson's supposedly harmless receptionist, whose debut was marked by an unforgettable moment. Drew informing Nina that "Michael shot me," followed by a pointed remark about her drugging him. Jacinda overheard the exchange, and the look on her face suggested someone quietly cataloging useful information. The Quartermain gun's disappearance remains a loose end, a detail the narrative seems to highlight with a blinking neon arrow. The possibility that Drew pocketed the gun during one of his family visits, entirely unaware that Jacinda later retrieved it, paints a far more strategic version of the receptionist than anyone was prepared for. After all, Drew's insistence that she stay in Australia, and his likely threats, would give her every reason to retaliate. On the night Drew was shot, Jacinda would have found entry laughably easy. The man didn't bother to lock his door. Meanwhile, Michael, ever the dutiful shadow, tailed Willow after she learned that the judge who handed Michael custody had turned up murdered. She sought answers from Drew. Inside the house, however, Jacinda got there first and shot him. She slipped out, discarded the weapon in the bushes, and vanished. Willow didn't see her. Michael did. What followed was a parade of ill-timed entrances and exits. Trina and Kai bolted out the back. Willow entered next, discovered Drew bleeding, and, too furious to remember basic humanity, simply left him there. Michael retrieved the discarded gun, explaining the rain-soaked clothes Tracy later observed. After drying off, he made his way to the Metro Court, where he spotted Jacinda, the woman he had just seen disposing of a firearm. Lacking concrete proof but sensing trouble, he paid for her drink, followed her to her room for a conveniently chatty visit, and walked away with an accidental alibi. Willow returned to the hospital, drenched, and offered Elizabeth a flimsy "went for a walk" explanation. When Tracy later stumbled upon Drew, the door still ajar, she summoned help. Drew was found shot, Willow suspiciously wet, and naturally the staff began applying kindergarten-level logic. Wet person equals guilty party. Michael's ongoing closeness with Jacinda now appears less like coincidence and more like strategy. Keeping one's enemies close is a time-honored tradition, and he intends to clear Willow not out of civic duty, but because restoring his domestic tableau is the prize he actually wants. Meanwhile, elsewhere in this emotional carnival, Brooklyn's nail color conveniently changed mid-scene. Curtis was dramatically arrested. Wedding guests looked like unwilling participants in a hostage exchange. Everyone except Drew, who radiated smug triumph. The anticipated moment when that expression evaporates may end up being the week's most satisfying plot twist. Amid it all, Brooklyn and Gio's emotional reconciliation offers a rare whiff of sincerity, though viewers may struggle to appreciate it, while juggling the far more pressing question of whether Christina's departure signals her sudden evolution into a gun-toting assailant. And then there is the matter of Drew's selective sense of danger. He is perfectly willing to let Scout spend time with Alexis as long as Alexis is defending Willow, an arrangement that conveniently undermines any justification for continuing the restraining orders. As for the increasingly popular theories, Willow remains the leading candidate, a choice that would make Drew and Chase look spectacularly foolish for championing her innocence. Stella, however, is rapidly gaining momentum. Her performance at the restaurant, pure focused fury, was arguably more compelling than any clue the police have collected. And if Michael happened to witness something, protecting an elderly family matriarch would be far easier to justify than shielding Jacinda or Willow. In a storyline already swollen with suspects, motives, and misdirection, the only certainty is that the eventual reveal will humiliate someone. Ideally Drew, if only for the entertainment value. Here's the part they never say out loud. In Port Charles, honesty isn't a virtue, it's a plot twist. The latest round of Port Charles theatrics arrives courtesy of both the on-screen chaos and the off-screen broadcast bungling. While viewers wrestle with station mishaps and missing episodes, the citizens of Port Charles manage to deliver enough melodrama to compensate for any network glitch. Curtis, of course, remains the town's favorite target for dubious accusations. And while he's being framed, Willow is quietly dissolving under the weight of guilt, one emotional tremor away from confessing that she shot Drew at her own wedding. It's an impressive feat, turning a celebration into a crime scene without so much as smudging the bridal makeup. As for the wedding itself, the Drew and Willow union continues its reign as the least inspired pairing on daytime television. Their lack of chemistry is practically a public service announcement for arranged marriages. At least those occasionally generate tension. Instead, the audience receives a performance so lethargic it could double as ambient noise in a waiting room. Even a sparkler would out-romance these two. Lucas, meanwhile, appears determined to repeat every romantic mistake available to him. Despite abundant warnings, including Carly's, he remains entangled with Marco, who exudes all the reliability of expired toiletries. Adding Sidwell's transparent disapproval only strengthens the prediction that this storyline is barreling toward a spectacular emotional pileup. Windermere, it seems, is still the ideal location for bad decisions and worse secrets. Against all odds, a surprising bright spot emerges: Michael and Jacinda. Their chemistry is not only unexpected, but oddly refreshing, as though Port Charles accidentally stumbled onto a pairing with genuine spark. The prospect of escalating their relationship in December suggests the rare possibility of a love story that isn't destined for immediate implosion. If Jacinda can withstand the gravitational pull of Corinthos family dysfunction, she deserves recognition, and possibly hazard pay. Then comes the eternal rivalry, Jordan versus Portia. Jordan continues to demonstrate an inconvenient allegiance to truth, something Portia treats more as a loose suggestion. The undercurrent between Jordan and Curtis, those lingering looks, those shared war story glances, suggests unfinished business simmering beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Portia's marriage maintains all the sturdiness of a cardboard prop, awaiting the next secret to send it crashing. And just when Port Charles pretends to settle, the narrative tosses out a December surprise: Britt and Cody. This potential coupling could be either delightfully chaotic or simply chaotic. But either way, it promises entertainment. Unrealized hopes for Britt's long-gone alternative pairing linger, but the universe insists on moving forward, pairing her instead with Cody, whose flirtations, even the faux ones, remain oddly compelling. Elsewhere, small moments attempt to restore balance. Little Leo makes a welcome appearance. Chase manages Thanksgiving only to donate the feast and return home for pizza. Brooke Lynn becomes this year's unofficial Thanksgiving curse, and Michael quietly discovers that Ned is sitting on yet another secret involving Drew, because naturally, the holiday season in Port Charles cannot proceed without at least one covert Corinthos-related revelation. In short, Port Charles delivers its usual holiday spread: misplaced accusations, unstable marriages, unlikely romances, and enough secrets to power an entire season's worth of tension. The town remains unprepared for what comes next, and somehow, that is precisely its charm. Here's what no one wants to admit about this storyline. The teenagers are carrying the legacy characters now. The current story arc has quietly accomplished something rare. It has placed the younger generation, Rocco, Charlotte, Aim, and Danny, squarely at the center of the canvas without reducing them to decorative background props. Given that these are the heirs of Luke and Laura Spencer and Sonny Corinthos, the belated decision to let them actually matter feels almost revolutionary. The performances are uneven. Charlotte's new actress, for instance, is still finding her footing. But there is unmistakable promise. The recast may sting for longtime viewers, yet the character's renewed narrative relevance helps soften the blow. The ripple effect is equally satisfying. Parents, grandparents, and even orbiting figures like Britt suddenly have something to do besides brood at hospital elevators. The Sidwell thread looping through their stories hints at larger machinations ahead. If half the theories are correct, there is no shortage of suspects, Valentine Cassadine being the most convenient, given that he once ran Pikeman, has a history of weaponized science, is ex-WSB, and possesses more clandestine ties than a mid-season spy thriller. Even the mysterious C in Britt's note seems almost too on-brand to ignore. Meanwhile, Drew continues his streak of being the least compelling man in the room. His handling of Willow's wedding ring alone could be taught in masterclasses on how not to propose. The ring Michael once gave Willow was removed long before a new marriage was even conceivable, yet Drew pocketed it as if he were entitled to any Quartermaine artifact that isn't nailed down. The result is a union built on borrowed sentiment and borrowed jewelry, an arrangement that feels less like romance and more like a poorly disguised attempt to live in Michael's shadow. Little wonder Willow projects all the emotional radiance of someone selecting the least offensive wallpaper sample. A walk down the aisle may occur, but the vows seem far less certain. A confession to Michael about her feelings, and about Drew's eagerness to implicate him in the shooting, would be the first honest moment in this entire triangle. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Leo's appearance is a pleasant surprise, if only because he somehow escaped the soap opera aging vortex that should have sent him directly to graduate school. Ace and Bailey, however, remain conspicuously missing and will presumably resurface old enough to have driver's licenses. Kevin's return is a welcome jolt of stability, though the same cannot be said for the baffling decision to arrest Curtis with almost no visible evidence. Evidently, being a sitting congressman earns one no additional security, no additional scrutiny, and only 4 guests at a wedding that looked more like a tax seminar. Fashion notes. Nina's red dress is undeniably striking, though tailored with the enthusiasm of someone determined to defy the laws of circulation. Finally, the shifting portrayal of Joss hints at both opportunity and danger. The actress has the talent. The writers simply need to decide whether they want a nuanced adult character or a cardboard cutout of resolve. With the right direction, Joss and Von In could very well echo the combustible magic of Luke and Laura, provided Vaughn's morally murky history and possible assignment to monitor Brennan eventually surface. In short, Port Charles is teetering on the edge of compelling chaos. Now it simply has to choose which characters will rise, and which will continue tripping over borrowed wedding rings. Here's what they don't tell you about Drew's hero arc. It falls apart the second anyone else enters the room. The latest tour through Port Charles arrives with all the subtlety of a marching band in a library, offering a reminder that some characters grow, some mature, and some, most notably Drew, persist in occupying screen time with the tenacity of a bad commercial jingle. Even attempts to enjoy a harmless Hallmark movie are thwarted by his omnipresent aura. The man has become a walking reminder of plot lines begging to be retired. Fortunately, the universe occasionally shows mercy. Leo resurfaces, taller and charming as ever, a bright spot in a town overrun with melodrama and questionable decision-making. His appearance is so rare, it nearly qualifies as a holiday. Meanwhile, the impending Drew and Willow wedding aspires to sincerity, but instead lands squarely in parody. The union inspires the same confidence as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. Add in the possibility of supervised visits with Michael, an uptick in Willow-Michael warmth, and Drew's predictably jealous streak, and the storyline practically writes its own cautionary tale. Should Drew decide to leverage evidence or coercion to keep his grip on Willow, it would only confirm what has long been obvious. He's twisted enough to weaponize even his own incompetence. The hope, of course, is that Michael doesn't tumble backward into old feelings, though Port Charles' track records suggest hope is an optimistic word. Willow's emotional whiplash continues undeterred. Summoning memories of her late mother for solemn reflection, she is simultaneously expected to radiate good cheer, an impressive misunderstanding of how human children, or humans in general, function. Elsewhere, Trina senses that the proverbial hit is about to meet the fan. She refuses to fall in line with the latest round of chaos, and who could blame her? The town barely has time to recover from one disaster before another leaps from behind the curtain. Speculation over Sidwell's mysterious partner points to Valentine, and frankly, it fits with suspicious ease. Intelligence-linked explosives in Sonny's penthouse, the acquisition of Windermere, and Pikeman's sudden interest in the Piers form a tidy constellation of Cassadine-shaped trouble. Even the cryptic C hovers like a dare. Across town, Alexis radiates the weary patience of someone who would truly prefer a funeral to yet another encounter with Drew. Danny's pain underscores the fallout of Drew's pettiness, an emotional debt that will come due eventually. Amid the turmoil, familiar faces return. Kevin Collins resurfaces after an eternity, bringing a sense of stability the show sorely needs. Leo's reappearance warms the screen, especially for those who see shades of their own neurodiverse loved ones in him. Curtis' father also wanders in, delightful to watch, though narratively irrelevant unless he's preparing to confess to shooting Drew, which would instantly make him indispensable. The build-up to the Quartermain Thanksgiving promises pyrotechnics that rival Independence Day. Between the farcical wedding, Curtis's contributions, and the usual dysfunction, the meal is poised to combust on contact. Elsewhere, Rick becomes a study in transformation, Britt continues behaving like Britt, and Jason is expected to deliver karmic corrections with stoic precision. The siblings rally, Carly regains her footing, and Brennan amuses with the confidence of someone blissfully unaware of how absurd he is. Laura, the unofficial First Lady of Port Charles, retains her seat, proof that competence occasionally triumphs. Her sparring with Rick provides welcome texture, even if the relationship could benefit from a softer landing. And still, the unresolved question persists. Since Drew remains inexplicably indestructible, should karma handle what the writers refuse to? Perhaps a struggle with painkillers born of self-inflicted heroics would finally give the character a storyline that makes sense, or at least curtails his meddling. Unfortunately, some residents test patience in new ways. Sidwell's presence wears thin, and concerns mount that something ominous awaits Lucas at Windermere. The mansion practically advertises danger. No one should be shocked when trouble arrives with a monogrammed invitation. Spy games and mob warfare continue overstaying their welcome, prompting a collective wish for romance, real romance, to reclaim the narrative. Pairings like Michael and Jacinda, Hio and Emma, or even Joss and Vaughn promise a spark, though Brennan's disapproval dims the odds. Cody and Molly remain an open question. He's endearing, she's a bit flaky, and the age gap glares unhelpfully. Thanksgiving preparations include the ill-fated turkey from Outback and Jordan's arrival, which elicits a reaction from Trina that could curdle dairy. The day ahead promises humor, sentiment, and enough head-tilting moments to strain one's neck. No matter the chaos, the return of these familiar faces, especially Leo, brings a sense of homecoming. Port Charles may be dysfunctional, dramatic, and occasionally exhausting, but when its residents assemble, it becomes irresistibly entertaining. Even on days when the town seems determined to implode, the spectacle is impossible to turn away from, unlike Drew, who remains as persistently present as ever. Here's the uncomfortable truth about Port Charles. The villains are more competent than half the heroes. The return of Leo Quartermain and Easton Rocket Suida arrives with the enthusiasm usually reserved for long-lost heirs or the rediscovery of a missing prop warehouse. Both have grown, both are welcome, and both are immediately overshadowed by the ever-reliable chaos machine known as Port Charles plotting. Speculation now swirls around the possibility that Sidwell has tucked Sam away somewhere on Windermere, like a misfiled tax document, leaving Lucas primed to stumble upon his very much not dead sister. Naturally, this would put Lucas in mortal danger and threaten to expose not only Sidwell, but Marco as well. Because in Port Charles, every secret is a group project with terrible collaborators. Meanwhile, the WSB's long-standing refusal to recruit Jordan remains one of the great mysteries of the fictional intelligence world. Few characters demonstrate such cheerful willingness to abandon common sense, loved ones, and basic safety in the name of the job. Yet the agency persists in overlooking her. A baffling oversight. What the show truly lacks, and what it desperately needs, is a long-term super couple capable of hooking viewers who aren't yet eligible for orthopedic pillow ads. A modern audience in the 20 to 30 age range requires a pairing with chemistry, tension, and enough melodramatic peril to justify the dramatic music cues. The formula hasn't changed. Opposites attract, danger bonds, and longevity seals the deal. Luke and Laura battled Cassadines. Jason and Sam had the original Franco. Sonny and Carly waded through a buffet of mobsters. Robert and Anna squared off with Faison. Even Maxie and Spinelli endured the curse of Peter. The lesson is simple: no danger, no super couple. The new generation needs one of its own, and Cody and Molly, bolstered by the threat of the Nero family, seem a plausible candidate. Whether the writers will commit to this is another question entirely. As for the fandom's perpetual hand-wringing over civility, disagreement does not qualify as cruelty, though many appear determined to blur the line. A difference of opinion is not character assassination, an idea society at large might consider revisiting. Stillwell, however, unites viewers in at least one sentiment. He may be the most entertaining villain to grace daytime television. Unpredictable, dangerous, absurdly charismatic, and capable of switching from menace to manic inspiration in a heartbeat, he rivals icons like Helena Cassadine and Dr. Rolfe. The prospect of his fictional demise feels wasteful, especially with unresolved matters like Dalton's secret lab and its mysteriously unattended animals. Someone should address that before the SPCA stages a storyline intervention. And then there's Willow Tate, whose decision-making continues to inspire both frustration and a deep desire to deliver a gentle yet urgent shake of common sense. After the latest episode, the Quartermain Thanksgiving chaos, with its traditional pizza and guaranteed dysfunction, seems preferable to attending certain Port Charles nuptials. If the upcoming wedding dissolves into melodramatic disaster, it will only meet expectations. One lingering concern remains. Whatever Jason did with Dalton's body, one hopes it was both hygienic and narratively reversible. Here's what no one seems willing to admit. Port Charles doesn't attract criminals, it manufactures them. Port Charles has perfected a singular civic tradition, The instant one criminal menace is eliminated, another materializes as if summoned by municipal ordinance. The city behaves less like a community and more like a magnet for eccentrically motivated felons who arrive preloaded with a singular ambition: declare Sonny Corinthos their mortal enemy, and begin plotting his removal as if auditioning for a vacancy. The pattern is almost ceremonial. Peter finally vacates after monopolizing narrative oxygen for an eternity. Within moments, Cyrus steps forward to resume the role of designated tormentor until he, too, is dramatically dispatched. No sooner is the dust settled than fresh chaos erupts. Anna and Jason rush to liberate Lucky and Holly from a new abductor who, naturally, has appeared to reclaim stolen diamonds. And because Port Charles never leaves a crime throne empty, this newcomer seems to be sworn in by some invisible authority as the latest official threat, presumably handed a dog-eared manual titled How to Take Down Sonny Corinthos in 10 Easy Steps. The city's geography does nothing to discourage the trend. As a port, it attracts every imaginable brand of illicit enterprise, smuggling, trafficking, and an entire United Nations of grudges, turning Port Charles into the eastern seaboard's unofficial clearinghouse for questionable ethics. Compared to the louder, better-policed hubs of New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, or Philadelphia, it offers the kind of quiet anonymity criminals dream of. At the center of it all stands Sonny, presiding over the docks like an unofficial zoning requirement, ensuring his back remains the most conveniently placed target in town. In Port Charles, the criminal element isn't a problem. It's practically an ecosystem, and Sonny is the sun everything else orbits, willingly or otherwise. They keep calling this character development, but it's actually character regression. Trina has become the unfortunate poster child for a storyline that seems determined to shrink her rather than grow her. The character is 22 years old, yet the writing treats her as if she's a fragile dependent whose every pout must be indulged. The relentless coddling from every adult in her orbit, Ava's she can do no wrong routine included, has flattened her into a one-note figure who exists only to be protected, pitied, or praised. It's a baffling downgrade for someone once positioned as the old soul of the younger crowd. The current obsession with her parents' marriage only highlights how ill-fitting this narrative is. Trina did not grow up in a picture-perfect two-parent home. She barely knows Curtis. And Portia's reputation for dishonesty is practically a family tradition. Yet the audience is expected to believe she is passionately invested in the sanctity of the Portis union. Her icy glares at Jordan play less like justified outrage and more like the theatrics of a teenager convinced the world has personally wronged her. No 20-something adult behaves this way, even within a soap's generous suspension of disbelief. The storyline strains plausibility to the point of parody. Meanwhile, her peers are allowed to have adult arcs, relationships, and complications. Trina, by contrast, is relegated to policing her parents' love lives as if she has nothing resembling a life of her own. She could be exploring her career, deepening her romantic entanglements, or, imagine the novelty, having a plot that doesn't orbit Curtis and Portia's never-ending melodrama. Instead, she's written into a corner where her primary function is to scold, sulk, or interfere. Layered on top of the writing issues is the sense that the creative team simply has no idea what to do with her. The recast exposed a lack of chemistry with Spencer, requiring him to carry a pairing touted as grand romance, despite never actually landing as believable. Spencer and Esme's connection once made the imbalance glaring, and now the same mismatch is repeating with every new potential partner. When a character cannot generate sparks anywhere, the scripts compensate by making her brittle and abrasive, first with Kai, now with Jordan, as though Edge alone could fill the void of direction. The result is a character adrift, stripped of complexity and weighed down by a storyline unworthy of her. Unless she's pulled out of this infantilizing loop and handed material that challenges rather than diminishes her, the show risks cementing her as an accessory rather than a fully realized presence. Another year, another stack of pizzas. For once, everything went well for the Quartermaines' Thanksgiving during the December 1st, 2025 episode of General Hospital, Too Well. This year, Chase was determined to cook Thanksgiving dinner for the Quartermaines. And with Brooke Lynn by his side, he actually succeeded. He cooked a turkey, a tofurkey for the newly vegetarian Leo, and all the fixings for the family. Everything seemed right in the world. Ned was home from the hospital, Gio arrived with Emma to spend Thanksgiving with his family, and a home-cooked meal sat in the kitchen. It all went to plan, until they learned that Leo had let a hungry Outback into the house. In an unexpected twist, they got to Outback before she could touch their dinner, and that was when Brooke Lynn spiraled. She told everyone not to move in order to not jinx the dinner before realizing what they all knew. A Quartermaine Thanksgiving is always doomed, so why bother? Once they accepted their fate, they decided to donate Chase's meal to GH, while Ned and Gio got a surprise at the door. When everyone returned, they were greeted with a stack of pizza boxes, courtesy of Tracy. First they sang, then they ate. In true Quartermaine Thanksgiving tradition. Of course, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without a little, or a lot, of drama. Ned made it clear that he hadn't told the family about Drew leaving him to die, possibly sparing them from that horrific detail, while Gio decided once and for all that he and Dante have no future. As for Michael, he let his dark side out again when he showed up outside Drew's window, peeking in on his wedding to Willow. General Hospital spoilers for December 2nd reveal that Brooke Lynn will be there for her son, presumably when he tells her he doesn't see himself having a relationship with his father. Now that she's finally starting to bond with Gio, she's not going to let Dante ruin things. Liz is a GH legacy character and should be treated like one. General Hospital's Elizabeth Weber is part of one of the original families of Port Charles, but fans wouldn't know it based on the use of the character lately. For the past couple of years, Liz has been used to prop up other characters, like Finn, Lucas, and Willow. Liz's last real storyline centered on a mystery surrounding her childhood, which ultimately led to her uncovering a traumatic event involving her parents. The story's payoff was lackluster at best. The once pivotal character, who used to drive storylines, especially during the days of Lucky, Emily, and Nicholas, is now stuck on the back burner. It is a waste of potential for the character, especially considering her grandparents, Steve Hardy and Audrey Hardy, literally helped give GH its legacy today. Fans are not happy with the way Liz has been treated. Elizabeth Weber is original lead protagonist, Steve Hardy granddaughter. She should always have her own storyline. And it's ridiculous. She's reduced to nothing more than a shoulder to cry on for other characters and their storylines, insisted a fan on X. Instead of using Liz as a shoulder to lean on for other characters, she and her children should be front and center at all times. However, all three of Liz's children are continually off-screen, and in addition to doing her head nurse duties, she is only seen when she is helping to drive someone else's storyline. Please free Liz from being Willow's bestie, unless she's going to start getting real blunt with her, wrote a fan. Those devoted to Liz feel the way she is being written isn't just a disservice to the character, but also to Herbst, a veteran actress on the ABC soap for 28 years. Not letting the single mom nurse be an actual on-screen mom is such a massive mistake on the part of GH. Just a complete waste of talent and disrespectful of a great vet, wrote another fan. What do you think of Liz's treatment on GH? Sound off in the comments section below. The Quartermaine curse is finally challenged when Chase and BLQ reveal they cooked an entire Thanksgiving meal behind everyone's backs. On General Hospital, for as long as Port Charles has had a skyline, the Quartermaine family has been waging an annual losing war against Thanksgiving dinner. It's practically a civic tradition at this point. Someone drops a match, someone screams, the smoke alarms kick in like they're auditioning for a nightclub, and the bird ends up charred, missing, stolen, or airborne. Everyone ends up throwing their hands in the air, and the whole clan caves and orders pizza. It's a disaster, yes, but it's their disaster. So iconic you half expect the PCPD to patrol the house every fourth Thursday in November, just to be safe. On one hypothetical holiday, though, picture Olivia deciding she's finally done tempting the Thanksgiving gods. No turkeys, no stuffing, no stove that mysteriously short-circuits whenever the Qs gather in one room. Instead, she drags everyone to the kitchen to show off the new toy she's been itching to use, a chunky, brick-lined pizza oven she swears she got a deal on, even though it looks like something out of a celebrity chef's backyard. And if the Quartermaines are doomed to end up with pizza anyway, Olivia figures she may as well pretend it was the plan all along. And for a minute, a glorious, fleeting minute, it works. Dough flies, sauce simmers. Even Tracy admits it smells passable, but the Quartermaine curse always finds its opening. Olivia slides in the very first pie, and the oven immediately coughs, wheezes, and makes a sound no appliance should ever make outside of a horror movie. A second later, the whole thing slumps sideways like it just gave up on life, sending everyone scrambling, and Tracy yelling that she knew this would happen. Chaos naturally follows. Brooke Lynn panics. Leo asks whether the oven went to heaven. Ned instinctively reaches for the phone to order pizza, muscle memory kicking in like an old football injury. It's over, Olivia thinks. Another year. Another culinary crime scene. But then, in a twist so wholesome it might give Tracy whiplash, Chase and BLQ step in. Turns out the newlyweds spent the morning secretly preparing a full Thanksgiving meal in case Olivia's plan went sideways. They pull out a golden turkey, real sides, actual rolls that didn't come from a frozen bag. The room shifts. For the first time in decades, the Quartermaines sit down to an honest-to-God turkey dinner. The curse broken not by luck, but by two people who have finally figured out how to steady the chaos. Olivia's emotional. Jason's impressed. Tracy pretends she's not. And somewhere in that dining room, maybe in the flicker of a candle, maybe in Edward's portrait, you can almost feel the old man nodding. This year, Thanksgiving wasn't a disaster. This year, it was earned. General Hospital spoilers are in for Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. In tomorrow's episode, fans can expect Brooke Lynn Quartermaine to back up Giovanni Gio Palmieri. Laura Collins gets a happy surprise. Plus, Willow Tate has a big decision to make. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Willow and Drew Kane's wedding. While the congressman looks thrilled, Willow seems more uncertain. Nina Reeves tries to give her daughter a way out, but Willow just keeps trying to convince herself of marrying Drew. It seems that the wedding is going to begin as Willow walks down the aisle. However, could something or someone interrupt that changes everything? Michael Corinthos is spotted in a window peering in on Drew and Willow's wedding. It doesn't seem like he crashes it, though. Instead, a preview clip shows Michael telling Jacinda Brequel that he wishes they could have met under different circumstances. Is Michael breaking up with the blonde? It is also stated that Michael receives a tempting offer. Does Willow agree not to marry Drew in exchange for Michael breaking it off with Jacinda? I can't see them making any kind of deal under their current dynamic. Perhaps Michael and Jacinda make a deal. General Hospital spoilers for tomorrow's episode reveals that Laura opens the door to a joyous sight. It's Kevin Collins, Kevin says. Well, hello, beautiful. However, will Laura tell him what happened with Professor Henry Hank Dalton? Or will Laura keep a secret, threatening her marriage? As for Curtis Ashford, he asks Nathan West if he's under arrest. Meanwhile, inside the house, Trina Robinson totally freaks out over learning that Portia Robinson is pregnant. Trina can't believe that her family is keeping secrets from her yet again. Fans will also see Emma Scorpio Drake to be determined. Meanwhile, BLQ backs up Gio. In a preview clip, Gio says that he doesn't want to do that anymore. It definitely sounds like Gio and Brooke Lynn are on a more positive path. What about Dante Falconeri, though? With Dante's latest blow-up at Gio, that relationship might take a lot more time to repair, so stay tuned. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025? General Hospital spoilers and updates tease Drew Kane may be in double jeopardy by marrying Willow Tate. Willow knows that by marrying Drew, if he should die after putting her and her children in his will, she'll be a very rich woman. Honestly, Willow needs to marry Drew because it will look good for her exoneration in the charges she faces for attempting to murder him. Even Drew said that. And although she initially made excuses for wanting to marry him for the right reasons, ultimately, she accepted his proposal. She may have wanted to throw him off the track, to make sure that he didn't suspect that she had been the shooter. even though it appears he doesn't have a clue. Both of them want to make sure Michael Corinthos goes down for the crime, even at the risk of battling Carly Spencer in court in a custody battle. But if Willow was the one who tried to kill Drew to begin with, will she try to do so again, only by a different method? Once Willow is exonerated, she cannot be tried again for the same crime that is what's known in the legal world as double jeopardy. Drew's double jeopardy is trusting Willow and putting himself in danger, so after she could finish him off, having her children back and inheriting everything he has, she'll have full access once they are married. She can dispose of him by poisoning or anything else, except shooting him isn't a good idea. Even if she can't be tried for murder again on the original charges, using the same method may still cast suspicions on her. The legal term double jeopardy refers to the same crime, same instance, not a second try. Of course, Drew's original plan included him, Willow, Wiley, and Amelia Corinthos, and his daughter, Emily Scout Quartermain, living together as a family. But even Scout can see that her father has changed for the worse, and she'd rather live in the Quartermain mansion with Danny Morgan. If not that, she'd gladly live with her grandmother, Alexis Davis, or one of her maternal aunts, Christina Corinthos Davis, or Molly Lansing Davis. So if Drew dies, and Willow gets away with it again, by possibly setting up some tainted medication or something, Scout will be taken care of. Willow realizes the child is better off without her father, even though she would be a total orphan. She'll still get her inheritance, though. She wouldn't deny her that. General Hospital spoilers and updates for the week of December 1st tease Brooklyn Quartermain gets a Thanksgiving surprise, while Curtis Ashford finds himself under police radar. Plus, Carly Spencer gets an unwelcome visitor and takes action. Brooklyn's Thanksgiving surprise melts hearts. Trina's holiday turns tense fast. Nina gives Willow a last-minute out. Curtis falls. Under PCPD scrutiny, Carly arms herself against a shocking intruder. At the Quartermain mansion, Brooklyn gets a Thanksgiving surprise as she answers the door. It's Gio Palmieri and Emma Scorpio Drake. Brooklyn's jaw drops in surprise as Gio tells her, "Happy Thanksgiving!" For Brooklyn, this is turning out to be the best Thanksgiving ever, with her son showing up shortly after calling her mom for the first time. Plus, Ned Quartermain's is home from the hospital, and he'll be there too. It will be a happy Thanksgiving indeed, at the Q's. But the big question is, turkey or pizza? In the meantime, the Ashford Robinson house is ready for Thanksgiving, but Trina Robinson is not happy to answer the door to Jordan Ashford, who's carrying a covered dish. That means Trina's dad, Curtis, must have invited his ex-wife, who she blames for his impending divorce from her mom, Portia Robinson. In the meantime, Portia opted to work that day, so she wouldn't have to deal with Thanksgiving and Stella Henry's insistence on staying together for the baby's sake. If she's been bugging Curtis at home, for sure she's been bugging Portia at work as well about the touchy subject. At the home of Drew Kane, he and Willow Tate are getting married, and Nina Reeves gives her daughter a well-meaning out. The plans are for Martin Gray to officiate, and it's just a small wedding that will basically get the legalities over with. Nina looks at Willow and asks if she really wants to do this, as Drew shoots a stern look at her as if to say, "Don't you dare back out." Willow doesn't look exactly happy herself, and her look is a little stern as well. Perhaps that's her response to her mother's well-meaning out. Back at the Ashford Robinson house, Curtis is outside in the backyard as he asks Nathan West if he's under arrest. Curtis has come under the Port Charles Police Department's radar in the Drew Kane shooting case after Acting Police Commissioner Dante Falconeri issued the order. Dante wants to go through the persons of interest list again to make sure they're honing in on the right suspect. In the meantime, inside the house, Stella is shocked, and Marshall Ashford looks worried. Trina drops a plate of cookies as she enters the room with Kai Taylor, exclaiming, "What did you say?" It's after dark, and Carly appears to be worried about a prowler as she walks slowly through her home office, carrying what appears to be a golf club at the ready. A man can be heard exclaiming, "Oh my God!" as she swings at him. It sounds like it may be her boyfriend, Jack Brennan, as he obviously didn't knock at the door to be let in. Slowing down the video clip, one can see a man's arms. He struggles with her, appearing to be clothed in a black coat, possibly a suit coat, trying to get the club away from her, grabbing her arms. Regardless, it looks like she swings at him anyway, unless he's come in on a burglary she's trying to prevent, and it's someone else in the black coat. General Hospital spoilers and updates tease Laura Collins will open up about her trauma from finding Henry Dalton's body in her trunk to someone she trusts. Might she suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, with the new trauma also causing her to flash back to nightmares from her past? Although Gen Z Sidwell's intention was to frame Laura for killing Dalton, she's innocent of this murder. However, she has killed before, years ago. She was only a teenager when she killed David Hamilton in self-defense, pushing him away, and he fell on his head and died. Scotty Baldwin helped cover it up. Then, a few years later, she killed Rick Weber's lover, Teresa Carter, and Scotty helped cover that up too. He and Rick burying her in the backyard. But Rick helped her repress those memories by injecting her with a drug. When her memories started coming back, he tried to inject her again, and she killed him too. She then went into a catatonic state for several years. These were the years when Tracy Quartermaine helped raise Lulu Spencer. Before Laura opens up to someone about what's been happening, she'll get a happy surprise. It's possible that Kevin Collins could return from Dublin for a short visit. He was her first call the night that it happened, and she'd asked him to call her as soon as possible, so obviously an in-person visit would be a happy surprise. Nicholas Cassadine is still in prison, so his return is probably unlikely. That would leave a surprise visit from Lucky Spencer. So it's possible that she will open up to either Kevin or Lucky, because involving Lulu is not a good idea. With the chaos surrounding Rocco Falconeri, it's also possible that the happy surprise is unrelated, and she opens up to someone who already knows, like Sonny Corinthos or Jason Morgan. Laura will open up to someone she trusts about her fears and what she's dealing with after the traumatic night she found Dalton's body in her trunk. But afterward, she's still haunted by what she saw, and it's very likely she begins having flashbacks to when she killed before. Even though this time, she wasn't the killer. It's the shock of seeing a dead body that is impacting Laura, not just that Sidwell is trying to frame her for Dalton's murder, although that doesn't help. But Laura is stronger than she thinks she is, and chances are, although she has nightmares, she won't go into a catatonic state this time. Rather than fall apart, she'll stand up and fight for her innocence, Sonny's and Rocco's. Kevin comes home, or is it Ryan? After a year away from Port Charles, John Lindstrom is making his General Hospital return right in the middle of Laura's chaos. Lindstrom's Kevin hasn't been seen in Port Charles since last December, and has recently been said to be in Dublin, Ireland. Now, Lindstrom is bringing Kevin home on December 2nd, just in time to enter Laura's current chaos. Kevin's wife just won re-election for mayor of Port Charles, but things took a shocking turn when she found a dead man in her trunk. A man she had previously publicly threatened. Now that she and Sonny are covering up Dalton's murder and apparent frame job on Laura, Kevin is about to wind up in the middle of it all, or be kept in the dark. Daytime fans may know that Lindstrom hasn't been away from the genre since exiting GH. Since the soap's February premiere, Lindstrom has been playing Fairmont Crest villain Joey Armstrong on Beyond the Gates, and villainous characters are no stranger to the actor. Long before he was Joey or Kevin, Lindstrom made his GH debut as Ryan Chamberlain, and the evil twin brother of Kevin's, who was eventually killed in 2023 after decades of heinous acts. Of course, skeptical GH viewers have got to ask, is this really Kevin? Although Ryan supposedly died, the villains always come back. And if anyone's going to make things worse for Laura right now, it's Ryan. Catch Lindstrom's GH return on December 2nd. General Hospital spoilers and updates for Tuesday, December 2nd. Tease Laura Collins gets a happy surprise, while Willow Tate makes a big decision. Also, Curtis Ashford has important questions when Nathan West showed up with questions of his own. Laura has a happy surprise as she opens her door to a sight for sore eyes. Kevin Collins has returned from Dublin with a bouquet in his hands. She's blindsided as Kevin says, "Hello, beautiful." It's the first time Kevin's been home in several months, but he'll quickly notice something's wrong. The night that Laura found the shocking and traumatic sight of dead Henry Dalton in her trunk, Kevin was her first call. It seems he's decided to answer in person. For sure, He'll encourage her to talk about what's bothering her because he'll be able to tell. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine looks worried when Gio Palmieri tells her, "I don't want to do that anymore." They had made so much progress, he'd even called her mom, and after that, you can see she's afraid he's going to say he doesn't want to do that. However, according to GH Spoilers, she will back him up on something, so perhaps the topic of conversation is breaking into Dalton's lab if they can find it. Or he could be referring to trying to have a relationship with Dante Falconeri, who again blasted him for getting Rocco Falconeri in trouble. At Drew Kane's house, Willow looks pensive as Drew mouths off, "No one's going to stop me from marrying the woman I love." Minutes earlier, Michael Corinthos was peering through the window, possibly considering crashing the wedding, and objecting. However, it doesn't look like he hangs around. But is Willow having second thoughts, considering what her mother Nina Reeves asked earlier? Not to mention, she didn't answer Elizabeth Baldwin when she asked her if she was ready to get married. However, she did go to the living room dressed in her bridal dress, and had spent some sweet pre-stepmother time with Emily Scout Quartermaine as well. Michael now has gone to a restaurant, or possibly the Brown Dog Bar, where he's meeting with a disappointed-looking Jacinda Bracken. It kind of sounds like breakup talk as he tells her he wishes that the two of them had met under different circumstances. Will it be Jacinda who presents him with the tempting offer, or will something else happen while they're there? Or possibly, he left Drew's house in response to a phone call. Either way, Jacinda looks pretty sad at what Michael is telling her. After being shocked at seeing Curtis kissing Jordan Ashford right after overhearing that her mother, Portia Robinson, is pregnant, Trina's in beyond a bad mood. She mouths off at Stella Henry, and she's actually fairly rude to her. She says, "It sucks to find out your family's keeping secrets from you, huh?" She had overheard Stella talking about Portia's pregnancy to Marshall Ashford, and doesn't like being the last one to know. On top of everything else, as she was ready to confront her father about kissing her ex, the police showed up to question him about Drew's shooting. It seems like Trina will soon be discussing with Kai Taylor about coming clean to the police themselves. Except, then they could be persons of interest in the shooting too. With Jordan possibly having either left or possibly hanging around for support, and Trina gone back inside, now Curtis has important questions for Nathan. Earlier, Dante had tasked him with bringing Curtis in for questioning, after reviewing all the possible persons of interest in the shooting. Curtis is going to have to come up with a better alibi than sitting in the Savoy alone and drinking, which is where he'd been, unless he can provide security footage. One would think that a former cop and private investigator would indeed have security cameras in the club he owns, but then, at one time, there was illegal poker in the basement. But with Selena Wu gone, might he have had some installed since then?